Hello friends. Now in this session we are going to discuss about one of the major and important rule which is related to the safety officers in Maharashtra, that is called as the Maharashtra Safety Officers Rule 1982 or the Maharashtra Safety Officers Duties, Qualifications and Conditions of Service Rule 1982 under Factory Act 1948. So it is the rule which is prepared or made under the Factory Act 1948. So the reference of this rule is, the main reference is section 40B of the Factory Act 1948, that is subsection 1 of section 112 and subsection 2 of section 40B. So the main reference is 40B of 1948. So under this rule, some of the guidelines and these rules are prepared by the government. The first rule is short title and extent. That is, these rules may be called as Maharashtra Safety Officers Duties, Qualification and Conditions of Service Rule 1982. And they extend to the whole of the state of Maharashtra. So this rule, when we are talking about the rules, so this is the state rule and this is prepared for the Maharashtra state. The second rule is the definitions in these rules, that is appointed day means the date of coming into the force of these rules. Degree means the degree of statutory university. Diploma means a diploma awarded by a recognized institutions or board. Form means a form appended to these rules. Government or state government means the government of Maharashtra. As this rule is applicable for the Maharashtra state, that is why when we are saying that government or state government, then it is Maharashtra government. Then recognized institution means an institution recognized by government. Safety officer means a safety officer and includes an additional safety officer appointed in accordance with the provisions of these rules. So in the industries, after this rule and notifications, additional safety officer is also one of the designations under the safety officers. So that is also approved by the government and the occupier. And the third rule is regarding the qualifications and disqualification for being appointed as a safety officer. So what exactly the basic qualification of the safety officer is? So he or she should possess a degree in any branch of engineering or technology. So sometimes it is a Bachelor of Engineering, sometimes it is a Bachelor of Technology, and sometimes it is like a BChem degree, that is also a bachelor in that particular specific branch of engineering also, right? So if they are equivalent, then that can be a valid minimum requirement or the qualification for the safety officer. But in addition to that degree in branch of engineering, he or she should possess at least 2 years experience in the industries. So that should be at least at a supervisory level. So you must have a practical experience of working in any factory in a supervisory capacity for at least 2 years. Experience of not less than 5 years in training educations. So if you are having a degree in engineering and if you are having the experience in the training education or consultancy or research, then you must have at least 5 years experience. Then if you are not having the degree in branch of engineering, then at least you must have the degree in physics or chemistry or diploma in engineering or technology. So again, if you are having the BSc or diploma in engineering in any branch and a practical experience of working in any factory in a supervisory capacity for a period of not less than 5 years. So if you are having the qualification like BSc or diploma engineering, then you must have at least 5 years practical experience in the factory at least supervisory level. Possess adequate knowledge of Marathi language. So this is the additional point because it is stated for the Maharashtra government, Maharashtra state. That is why this is the additional point that he or she should possess adequate knowledge of Marathi language. No person shall be continued as a safety officer unless he possess any of the requisite qualification prescribed in sub rule 1. It means you must have a degree in engineering or technology plus 2 years experience, that is practical experience in factory at supervisory level, or you must have at least BSc or diploma engineering plus 5 years experience in the factory at supervisory level, and you must possess a diploma in industrial safety, right? So the diploma in industrial safety may possess from the central labor institutes or the regional labor institutes or the different government approved or government approved institutions, that may be private, that may be government institutes, but that qualification should be equivalent to the diploma in industrial safety which is possessed or conducted by the central or state government institutions. Then if the government decides that he is having the degree in engineering plus 2 years practical experience or BSc or diploma engineering plus 5 years experience, and you are not possessing that diploma in industrial safety, then they can give you a chance to act as a safety officer, and they may give you a condition that you should complete this diploma in industrial safety within the 5 years durations. So that is the appointment with the conditions, and that is the authority of that state government or the occupier. So you can act as a safety officer but with conditions, and that is why nowadays if you observe that many senior persons who are having the experience as well as the knowledge in the safety field acts as a safety officer, and now they are possessing this diploma in industrial safety. No person who is directly or indirectly interested in the factory or in any patent or machinery connected with it shall be appointed as safety officer or shall be allowed to hold such officer after he becomes so interested. So if the persons who are not a safety officer but they are having the experience, they are having some patents, or they are connected with some machineries etc. in the factory or into that company, then they can become a safety officer but with conditions. Say for the explanation, for the purpose of this sub rule, any person holding less than 2% of the shares of a company owning the factory shall not be deemed to be directly or indirectly so interested. So you should have at least 2% shares of that factory, and then you can say that now I am interested to become a safety officer for this factory, as I have this much knowledge and I have this much of experience and I have this much percentage of this shares of this factory. So these are the different conditions for the qualifications and disqualification for appointment as a safety officer. So with reference to which section and for how much period this appointment of the safety officer can be done. So with reference to the state government notification, official gazette issued under the subsection 1 of section 40B of the Factory Act 1948, shall within a period of 6 months from the date of publications of the notification appoint the requisite number safety officer as specified in that notifications. So if you observe the section 40B of the Fact Act 1948, if you are having 1000 or more than 1000 employees, then you should have at least one safety officer. If it is more than 2000, if it is 3000, if it is 5000, likewise you should have at least minimum number of that much safety officer which is mentioned in the section 40B. But after that, after this publication of this notification, you should appoint that much number or that adequate number in your factory within the 6 months period, and this appointment should be done, and that is the responsibility of that occupier of that factory only, right? So that number should be provided, or the appointment of the safety officer should be done by the occupier within the 6 months period after the publication of this gazette. If the occupier is not in a position to appoint all the safety officer what is required depending on the number of employees or the workers, if he wants the extension of that period, then the chief inspectorate of factory can give the extension of 6 months, that is 6 months plus 6 months, obviously for 1 year duration, but it is the condition that within 1 year period you should appoint the adequate number of safety officer in your factory. That is the mandatory conditions. Then fifth rule is recruitment of a safety officer. So what exactly the procedure for the recruitment of a safety officer? So the occupier or the factory shall be advertised, give the advertisement of the post of safety officer which is filled in that factory depending on the number of workers. The safety officer requirement be 1 or 2 or 3 or more than that. So the advertisement of this post should be given in at least 2 newspapers, and one of the newspapers should be English. The selection shall be made from amongst the candidates applying for the post by a committee of persons appointed by the occupier. So there is a group of members that is called as committee who are going to select these safety officers. So that committee members should have the knowledge related to the safety officer appointments, and the persons or the members are appointed by that occupier. So this committee is going to scrutinize these safety officers applicants, and then occupier can finalize the appointments of these safety officers. So after the appointment when made shall be notified by the occupier to the chief inspector of the factories or such other officers as he may specify for the purpose, giving full details of the qualifications of the persons appointed and conditions of the service applicable to him. Because when you are going to convey these appointments of the safety officer to the chief inspector of factories, then they are also going to cross check the minimum qualification criteria, the minimum experience criteria, and the minimum diploma in industrial safety criteria from their perspective, right? Then sixth rule is related to the filling of vacancy. So when you are going to fill this vacancy, that is the post of safety officer, every vacancy in the post of safety officer caused by death, dismissal or discharge of the person holding such post or by any other cause shall be forthwith notified by the occupier to the chief inspector of factory. Sometimes it happens that due to the accidents, incidents or the natural death, the vacancy is created. Sometimes the dismissal by the occupier, sometimes the resignation by the safety officers, and maybe some other causes. If it is the case, then the occupier's responsibility is to convey this information to the chief inspector of factories, and then they are going to start the recruitment policies which is given in the previous rule. So that period should be within 3 months you have to appoint the safety officers. In case if it is not feasible to appoint the safety officer within 3 months, then occupier can uh, return the application to the chief inspector of factories, and with the help of or with the conditions of this appointment, the chief inspector of factory can extend this period by another 3 months. So 3 plus 3, that is 6 months period is a mandatory conditions for the occupier to appoint the safety officers or the adequate number of safety officer for filling this vacancy. The seventh rule is for the conditions of service, where the number of safety officer to be appointed as with the notifications reference, that is subsection 1 of section 40B of the Factory Act 1948 published in the official gazette exceeds 1, it means with reference to the number of workers, with reference to the section 40B, if you are going to appoint more than one safety officers, then the senior most amongst them shall be designated as a safety officers, and another or the additional officers, that is safety officers, are called as additional safety officer as the designations. So for administrative purposes, remaining safety officers can be called as additional safety officers, and the senior most is called as safety officers. But the payment scale, the authorities, then the functionalities or the responsibilities are near about same. The safety officer shall be given the status of the head of department, and he shall work directly under the control of the chief executive of the factory, and the additional safety officer shall be equated with and given appropriate status to enable them to discharge their functions effectively. So the safety officer or the additional safety officers is equivalent to the head of department. So they are going to direct, convey or communicate to the chief executive of the factory. So for the smooth functioning, they should have this opportunity, they should have these authorities and the responsibility as a head of department. The scale of pay and the allowances to be granted to the safety officer, including the additional safety officers, and other conditions of their service shall be same as those of the other officers. So whatever the scale of pay and the allowances are allowed for other officers in the factory, that should be the same for the safety officer as well as for the additional safety officers. The safety officer shall be provided with adequate technical and secretarial staff and equipment to enable him to function efficiently. So for the smooth functioning of the department, for smooth functioning of the different activities under this safety, the safety officer or the additional safety officer must have the adequate technical and secretarial staff and the equipment which is required for the activities. Whenever any occupier intends to dismiss or terminate the service of the safety officer, he shall communicate in advance his intention to do so and the reasons for such dismissal or termination of service to the chief inspector of factory. It means the occupier can't dismiss or terminate a safety officer or additional safety officer directly or without any intimation to the chief inspector of factory. So the occupier should give some intimations to the chief inspector of factory that in the month or in the next month I am going to dismiss or terminate the safety officer or the additional safety officer due to these serious reasons. The occupier shall not take any action for such date or termination of service before the expiry of 30 days from the date of receipt of the communication by the chief inspector of factories, consideration any advice rendered by him within the said and without taking into. So if the occupier is going to communicate to the chief inspector of factory regarding the dismissal or termination of the safety officer, then the chief inspector of factory can revert for that communication within the 30 days, and then you can proceed for the termination or the dismissal of that particular safety officer with valid reasons. The eighth rule is duties of safety officers. So the duties of safety officer shall be to advise and assist the factory management in the fulfillment its obligations, statutory or otherwise, concerning prevention of personal injuries and maintaining a safe working environment. So the main duty of the safety officer is to maintain a safe working environment, to reduce the number of injuries or to reduce the seriousness or the uh, hazards of the working environment, to have the precautionary measures, to concern about the prevention techniques regarding the activities, to have some safety operating procedures for each and every activity, and the safety officer must have the knowledge about the legal requirements or the statutory requirements. These duties shall include the following, namely to advise the concerned departments in planning and organizing measures necessary of the effective control of personal injuries. So it is related to the personal injuries that safety officer must advise to the concerned department regarding their planning and organizing measures. To advise on safety aspects in all job studies and to carry out detailed job safety studies of selected jobs. So it's safety officer's responsibility to study all the safety aspects in each and every job, to check and evaluate the effectiveness of action taken or proposed to be taken to prevent personal injuries. Then to advise the purchasing and stores department in ensuring high quality and availability of personal protective equipments. That is one of the main aspect and the responsibility of the safety officer, that after studying the safety aspects in each and every job, he must list out the personal protective equipments which is required for that particular activity or the job to protect the persons from the injuries, to advise on matters related to carrying out the plant safety inspection, that is called as PSI. So plant safety inspection is very necessary conditions to avoid the incidents or accident which are happening in the plant or industry. To carry out plant safety inspection in order to observe the physical conditions of work and the work practices and procedures followed by the workers, and to render advice on measures to be adopted for removing the unsafe physical conditions and preventing unsafe actions by the workers. So this is another important point which can be observed by the safety officer, and that is the duty of that safety officer. So the major accidents or the most of the accidents are happening due to the unsafe conditions and unsafe actions. So for controlling these unsafe actions and for maintaining safe physical conditions or safe working conditions, the safety officer must advise to the respective supervisors or the managers or the workers for maintaining the safe physical conditions or safe working conditions. And they should also advise that you must have to avoid these unsafe actions by the workers. To render advice on matters related to the reporting and investigation of industrial accident and diseases. So in case if any accident is happen, or in case if there is a disease which is observed by the medical person, then you should report these observations, that may be the accidents, that may be a disease, and you have to judge about these accidents and diseases, why it happened, how it happened. Then the safety officer should investigate these accidents or these type of diseases to avoid the repetition of this accident, to avoid the repetition of these diseases in other persons also. Then to investigate selected accidents. So if the historical data says that the accident is happened in the same plant or in the same department repeatedly, then you must have the detailed investigation of that particular accidents to avoid the repetitions. To investigate the dangerous occurrences reported under Rule 115 of the Maharashtra Factory Rule 1963, and the case of industrial diseases contracted by any of the worker employed in the factor reportable under Rule 116 of the said rule. So under this Factory Act 1948 for the Maharashtra state, the main rule is Maharashtra Factory Rule 1963, that is MFR 1963. So with reference to this MFR 1963 and with reference to the rule number 115 and 116, you can investigate these dangerous occurrences, that is reportable one. To advise on the maintenance of such records as are necessary relating to these accidents, dangerous occurrences and industrial diseases. So safety officer can advise on the maintenance of these such records, because why these accidents are happen, why these dangerous occurrences are happen, and how these industrial diseases are occur in the industrial persons. So the reasons, the causes, and to avoid the repetition of these accidents or dangerous occurrences and the industrial diseases, the safety officer must study in detail about these accident occurrences or diseases. So these are the different duties of the occupier. The duty of the safety officer is also to promote the setting up safety committees and acts as an advisor to such committees. So one of the important committee is the safety committee. So as far as the MFR 1963 is concerned, under rule number 73W, there is a provision for organizing or for structuring this safety committee. So the safety officer is the main member of this committee who is going to handle all this activity under the safety committees. To organize in association with the concerned departments, campaign competitions, contest and other activities whom will be developed and maintain the interest of the workers in establishing and maintaining so conditions of the work and procedures. So to maintain or to create a safety culture in the industry, that is one of the main tasks or the aim of the safety officer must be. So for maintaining the safety culture in the factory, a safety officer must appoint some of the coordinators, and they must conduct some of the activities like the competitions, the contest, or some other activities. That may be a safety poster competitions, that may be a safety culture competitions, that may be a photograph competitions for the unsafe act or unsafe conditions, or some other activities which can clearly gives you the idea, which can clearly gives you the message for the motivation of the safety culture. Then the duty of the safety officers to design and conduct the either independently or in collaboration with the training department, suitable training and educational programs for the preventions of these personal injuries. So it is the duty of that safety officer to conduct, to plan, to execute such types of training where you can go through the different educational programs or the preventions activities or the personal protective equipments or how to use these personal protective equipments, how to avoid these injuries, how to avoid the ergonomic hazards, etc. So all these types of programs or training should be conducted by the safety officers. So these are the different duties of the safety officer. No safety officer shall be required or permitted to do any work which is inconsistent with or detrimental to the performance of the duties mentioned in sub rule 1. So under this sub rule 1, all the duties of the safety officer is mentioned. So no safety officer is permitted to do inconsistent or detrimental to the performance of the duties mentioned in the sub rule 1. So these are the details of the safety officer rule which is related to the Maharashtra. Thank you.